In a distant corner of the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened to discuss the latest developments among the various species under their watch. The Council, made up of representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations, prided itself on maintaining order and stability throughout the cosmos. As the meeting began, the topic of a young, emerging species known as humans came up. The Council members reviewed the reports from their observational outposts, noting the rapid technological progress made by this civilization from a small, blue planet called Earth. "They are advancing quickly," remarked Councillor Zorax, a tall, slender being with luminescent skin. "But they are still primitive compared to our standards." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Many Council members viewed humans as a fractious, aggressive species, too caught up in their own internal conflicts to pose any significant threat to the established galactic order. Councillor Vortex, a stout, reptilian creature, spoke up. "Our anthropologists predict that human aggression will keep them confined to their own star system for centuries. They lack the unity and discipline to venture far beyond their own borders." The Council's dismissive attitude towards humans was shared by many of the represented species. They saw Earth as a backwater planet, its inhabitants too immature and volatile to be taken seriously on the galactic stage. As the discussions continued, Ambassador Emma Thompson, Earth's representative to the Council, sat quietly in the back of the chamber. She listened intently to the patronizing comments and condescending remarks made about her species, her frustration growing with each passing moment. Emma knew that the Council's perception of humanity was flawed. They saw only the surface-level conflicts and divisions, failing to recognize the deeper strengths and resilience that had allowed humans to overcome countless challenges throughout their history. When the time came for Earth's application for Council membership to be considered, the decision was swift and unanimous. The Council denied the request, citing humanity's lack of readiness and the potential disruption they could cause to the delicate balance of galactic affairs. Ambassador Thompson left the Council headquarters, her head held high despite the disappointment she felt. She understood that the Council's short-sightedness was born from a lack of understanding, a failure to see the true potential that lay within the human spirit. As she boarded her spacecraft to return to Earth, Emma reflected on the challenges that lay ahead. She knew that humanity would have to prove itself to the galaxy, to show that they were more than the primitive, warring species the Council believed them to be. But Emma also knew that when faced with adversity, humans had an uncanny ability to unite and rise above their differences. She had faith that when the time came, Earth would stand together as one, ready to take its rightful place among the stars. As her ship ascended through the atmosphere, Emma looked out at the vast expanse of space before her. The galaxy may have underestimated humanity, but she knew that they would soon learn the true strength and determination of the human race. With a smile on her face, Ambassador Thompson set her course for Earth, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Galactic Council may have dismissed them, but she knew that humanity's greatest achievements were still to come. Little did the Council know that their underestimation of humans would one day come back to haunt them. For when threatened, humanity had a way of defying expectations and achieving the impossible. As the spacecraft disappeared into the depths of space, the story of Earth's rise to prominence was only just beginning. The galaxy would soon learn the true power of human resilience and unity, and nothing would ever be the same again. In the years following the Galactic Council's dismissal of Earth's membership application, humanity continued to advance at a remarkable pace. Their technology progressed in leaps and bounds, and their exploration of the stars expanded ever further into the cosmos. However, tragedy struck when an Earth colony ship, the ESS Horizon, carrying 10,000 civilian passengers, including families and children, was suddenly destroyed while passing through a region of space controlled by the Galactic Council. The news of the catastrophe sent shockwaves throughout human society. People were outraged and demanded answers from the Council. The Council, in turn, claimed that the destruction of the Horizon was the result of a tragic accident, blaming it on human error and faulty equipment. But as the investigation into the incident deepened, fragments of data recovered from the Horizon's black box painted a different picture. The evidence suggested that the colony ship had been deliberately targeted and attacked by unknown vessels, armed with advanced weapons that bore the hallmarks of Council technology. This revelation sparked a wave of anger and grief across Earth. The loss of so many innocent lives, combined with the Council's apparent involvement, united humanity in a way that had never been seen before. Governments from every nation on Earth came together, setting aside their differences to demand justice and retribution for the lives lost. Delegations were sent to the Council, presenting the evidence of the attack and demanding answers. But the Council stonewalled, dismissing the human accusations as baseless and attributing their grief to the irrational emotions of an immature species. Behind closed doors, however, the council members were growing increasingly concerned about the potential threat posed by humanity. They saw the incident with the horizon as a warning sign, an indication that the humans were becoming too advanced, too unpredictable. In secret meetings, the councillors debated how to contain the human threat before it could disrupt the carefully maintained balance of power in the galaxy. Plans were drafted, fleets were mobilized, and alliances were formed, all with the aim of keeping humanity in check. But the humans were not oblivious to the Council's machinations. They had their own intelligence networks, their own spies and informants scattered throughout the galaxy. They saw the signs of the coming storm, the gathering of forces that could only mean one thing: the Council was preparing for war. Faced with an existential threat, humanity began to prepare for the conflict that seemed all but inevitable. The nations of Earth put aside their rivalries and united under a single banner, pooling their resources and expertise to build a military force capable of defending their species. In secret facilities across the solar system, human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop new technologies, new weapons and defenses that could stand against the might of the Council. They knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they also knew that they had one advantage the Council could never match: the indomitable human spirit. As the tensions between Earth and the Council reached a boiling point, Ambassador Emma Thompson found herself at the center of the crisis. She worked tirelessly to find a diplomatic solution, to prevent the outbreak of a war that could engulf the entire galaxy. But even as she strived for peace, Emma knew that the Council's actions had set in motion a chain of events that could not be easily undone. The destruction of the horizon had awakened something in humanity, a fierce determination to protect their own and to never again be underestimated by the powers that be. In the face of the Council's aggression, humanity was ready to unleash a side of themselves that the galaxy had never seen before. They were ready to fight, to defend their right to exist and to forge their own destiny among the stars. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the galactic order. The Council, in their arrogance and fear, had underestimated the strength and resilience of the human race. They had no idea of the fire they had ignited, the fury they had unleashed. As the fleets of Earth and the Council moved into position, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the spark that would ignite the flames of war. And in that moment, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to prove to the universe that they were a force to be reckoned with. The catalyst had been set, the die had been cast. The future of the galaxy would be decided by the actions of the coming days, and humanity was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. As the Galactic Council's fleets moved through the void of space, their objective was clear: to isolate Earth and bring the unruly humans to heel. The Council, confident in their superior numbers and advanced technology, expected to find a primitive species, easily cowed by a show of force. But as they approached the solar system, the Council scouts were met with a sight that defied their every expectation. Instead of the handful of outdated human warships they had anticipated, they found themselves face to face with an armada of unparalleled size and strength. 5,000 vessels, each one a marvel of human ingenuity and determination, stood ready to defend Earth against any aggressor. The human ships were sleek and powerful, bristling with advanced weaponry and shielded by impenetrable defenses. The Council's commanders were stunned. They had never seen anything like this before. The reports they had received, the assessments of human capabilities, had been woefully inadequate. It was as if the humans had been hiding their true potential, biding their time until the moment was right to reveal their true strength. As the Council's ships drew closer, they were met with a barrage of warnings from the human fleet. The message was clear: any attempt to approach Earth or its colonies would be met with swift and uncompromising force. Leading the human armada was Admiral Elizabeth Johnson, a brilliant strategist and a legend among her people. She had risen through the ranks of Earth's military, proving herself time and again in countless battles and simulations. Now, as she stood on the bridge of her flagship, the ESS Titan, Admiral Johnson knew that the fate of her species rested on her shoulders. She had trained her entire life for this moment, to defend Earth against the greatest threat it had ever faced. As the Council's ships entered weapons range, Admiral Johnson gave the order to open a channel to the enemy fleet. She wanted to give them one last chance to withdraw, to avoid the bloodshed that would inevitably follow. But as the communication link was established, the face that appeared on the view screen was not that of a reasonable adversary, but of a species consumed by arrogance and fear. The Council's commander, a towering insectoid known as Admiral Zaxxon, sneered at the human fleet arrayed before him. "Surrender now, humans," he hissed, his mandibles clicking with barely contained aggression. "You cannot hope to stand against the might of the Galactic Council." Admiral Johnson's response was calm and measured, belying the tension that gripped the bridge of the Titan. "You have underestimated us for the last time, Admiral Zaxxon," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "We will not surrender, we will not back down. We will fight for our right to exist, for our place among the stars." With those words, the battle began. The Council's ships opened fire, their weapons cutting through the void with searing beams of energy. But the human fleet was ready, their defenses absorbing the brunt of the assault and their own weapons answering in kind. The human ships moved with a grace and precision that the Council had never seen before. They danced through the enemy formations, striking with surgical precision and devastating effect. The Council's ships, for all their vaunted superiority, found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered at every turn. As the battle raged, the true extent of human ingenuity and adaptability became clear. The Council had assumed that they held the technological advantage, that their weapons and shields were beyond anything the humans could match. But they had been wrong. The human ships were equipped with technologies that the Council had never even dreamed of. Stealth systems that rendered them invisible to enemy sensors, inertial dampeners that allowed them to perform maneuvers that would crush any other vessel, and AI-assisted targeting systems that made every shot count. And then there were the weapons. The Council had scoffed at the idea of weaponized AI, dismissing it as a dangerous and unpredictable technology. But the humans had not only mastered it, they had turned it into their greatest asset. The AI warfare systems on board the human ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They could analyze enemy tactics, predict their movements, and adapt in real time to counter any threat. They were the perfect fusion of human creativity and machine precision, and they were wreaking havoc on the Council's fleet. As the battle wore on, the Council's ships began to falter. Their shields failed, their weapons overheated, and their crews were thrown into chaos. Some of the Council's client races, those who had been pressed into service as cannon fodder, began to flee, their loyalty to their masters evaporating in the face of human resilience. Admiral Zaxxon, his ship battered and his fleet in disarray, could only watch in horror as the human armada pressed their advantage. He had been so certain of victory, so confident in the Council's superiority. But now, as his ship shuddered under the impact of another volley, he began to realize the magnitude of his error. The humans had not just been hiding their strength, they had been preparing for this very moment. They had known that the Council would come for them, that they would have to fight for their very survival. And so they had planned, they had trained, and they had built a force that could stand against the very best the galaxy had to offer. As the last of the Council's ships fell silent, their hulls drifting lifelessly in the void, Admiral Johnson allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had done it. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of, what they would do to protect their own. But even as the cheers of victory echoed through the fleet, Admiral Johnson knew that this was only the beginning. The Council would not take this defeat lying down. They would regroup, they would plan, and they would come at humanity with everything they had. But for now, in this moment of triumph, the humans could savor their victory. They had proven themselves to be more than just upstarts or primitives. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species that would not be cowed or intimidated by anyone. As Admiral Johnson looked out at the wreckage of the Council's fleet, she knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The revelation of human strength, of their unbreakable spirit and indomitable will, had changed everything. The Council had underestimated them, had dismissed them as weak and divided. But now, as the light of distant stars played across the hulls of the victorious human ships, they knew the truth. Humanity would not be contained, would not be controlled. They would chart their own course, forge their own destiny. And woe be to any who stood in their way. The revelation had come, the truth had been laid bare. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and they would not be turned back. The future was theirs, and they would seize it with both hands. As the fleet turned back towards Earth, ready to celebrate their victory and honor their fallen, Admiral Johnson allowed herself a small smile. The Council had wanted to see what humanity was capable of, and now they had their answer. They had witnessed the unbreakable spirit of a species that had been forged in the crucible of adversity, a species that had learned to fight for every inch of ground, every moment of survival. And now, as the galaxy trembled at the revelation of human strength, they would learn the true meaning of resilience, of determination, of the indomitable human will. The future belonged to humanity, and they would make it their own, no matter the cost, no matter the challenge. For they were human, and they would never be broken. In the aftermath of the stunning defeat of the Galactic Council's fleet, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The humans, once dismissed as a primitive and divided species, had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. But the Council, for all their arrogance and presumption, were not about to accept this new reality without a fight. They regrouped, licking their wounds and plotting their revenge. They would not allow the upstart humans to challenge their dominance, to upset the carefully crafted order they had maintained for so long. But even as the council schemed and plotted, the humans were on the move. Admiral Elizabeth Johnson, flush with the victory over the council's fleet, was not content to rest on her laurels. She knew that the only way to ensure humanity's safety, to secure their place among the stars, was to press the advantage. And so, with a speed and efficiency that stunned the galaxy, the human fleet began to cut a swath through council space. They targeted key military installations, supply depots, and communication hubs, systematically dismantling the council's ability to wage war. The council, reeling from the sudden onslaught, could do little to stop the human advance. Their ships were outmatched, their defenses overwhelmed. They could only watch in horror as the humans tore through their territory, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Within a day, the human fleet had penetrated deep into the heart of council space, and now they stood poised above the council's homeworld, the seat of their power and authority. Admiral Johnson, her face set in a grim mask of determination, knew that the time had come for the ultimatum. She would give the council one last chance to surrender, to accept the new reality of human power and influence. With a flick of her wrist, she ordered a communication channel open to the council's leaders. The face that appeared on the viewscreen was that of the council's supreme chancellor, a wizened and ancient being known as Zala. Zala, his eyes wide with fear and disbelief, could barely contain his shock at the sight of the human fleet hovering above his world. "What is the meaning of this?" he stammered, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. Admiral Johnson, her voice calm and measured, spoke the words that would forever change the course of galactic history. "People of the Galactic Council," she began, her image broadcast to every corner of council space, "you have seen what we can do, how ill-advised it was to threaten us, to harm our children." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "But make no mistake," she continued, "this display of our power was but a fraction of our true capabilities. If we wished it, your worlds would be cinders, your species nothing more than a memory." The council chamber erupted in outrage and disbelief, but Admiral Johnson pressed on, undeterred. "But we are not you," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "We do not seek to conquer or destroy. We seek only to live in peace, to take our rightful place among the stars." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the ultimatum that would follow. "Here are our terms," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "The Council will submit to a full investigation by Earth into the attack on our colony ship. Those responsible will be turned over to us for trial and punishment under human law." The Council members, their faces contorted with rage and fear, could only listen in stunned silence as Admiral Johnson laid out her demands. "The Council will pay reparations to the families of those killed in the attack," she continued, "and humanity will be granted an equal seat on the Council, our voice and our votes carrying the same weight as any other species." She paused once more, letting the ultimatum hang in the air like a sword poised to strike. "You have 24 hours to comply," she said, her voice as hard and unyielding as steel. "There will not be a second warning." With that, the communication link was severed, and the human fleet prepared for the Council's response. They knew that the next 24 hours would be critical, that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. On the Council homeworld, chaos reigned. The leaders of the various species argued and bickered, some calling for immediate surrender, others demanding a fight to the death. But in the end, faced with the prospect of total annihilation, the Council had no choice but to comply. They knew that the humans held all the cards, that they could destroy them utterly if they so chose. And so, with great reluctance and bitterness, the Council agreed to the human terms. They would submit to the investigation, they would pay the reparations, and they would grant humanity an equal seat at the table. It was a bitter pill to swallow, a humiliating defeat for a species that had once considered themselves the undisputed masters of the galaxy. But they knew that they had no choice, that the alternative was too terrible to contemplate. As the deadline passed and the Council's acquiescence was transmitted to the human fleet, Admiral Johnson allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees, had forced them to accept humanity as an equal. But even as the celebrations began on the human ships, Admiral Johnson knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The Council would not forget this humiliation, would not easily accept the new order of things. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome. But humanity had proven itself equal to the task, had shown the galaxy the depth of their resolve and the strength of their unity. And as the human fleet began the long journey back to Earth, ready to take their place as a true power in the galaxy. Admiral Johnson knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. For they were human, and they would never back down, never surrender. They would fight for their place among the stars, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. The ultimatum had been given, the gauntlet thrown down. And humanity, united and strong, would meet whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering resolve and unbreakable spirit. The galaxy would never be the same again, and humanity would be at the forefront of the change, leading the way into a new era of discovery, of exploration, and of endless possibility. In the days and weeks following the Council's capitulation to Admiral Elizabeth Johnson's ultimatum, the galaxy was a changed place. The once mighty Galactic Council, the undisputed masters of the cosmos, had been brought low by the upstart humans, forced to accept their demands and grant them an equal seat at the table. It was a bitter pill for the Council to swallow, a humiliation that many of its members would never forget. But they had no choice. The human fleet, with its advanced technology and indomitable spirit, had proven itself more than a match for anything the Council could muster. And so, with great reluctance and resentment, the Council submitted to the human investigation into the attack on the Earth colony ship. They handed over the perpetrators, the high-ranking officials who had orchestrated the assault, and watched as they were brought to justice under human law. The trials were swift and fair, the evidence of the Council's guilt overwhelming. The conspirators, including 3 of the Council's most senior members, were found guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote human-controlled prison world. It was a stunning fall from grace for those who had once considered themselves above the law, above the very concept of accountability. But the humans were determined to send a message, to show the galaxy that actions had consequences, no matter how powerful or influential the perpetrator might be. As the dust settled and the new reality began to take hold, Ambassador Emma Thompson, the woman who had first brought Earth's case before the Council, took her place as humanity's representative on the galactic stage. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be resistance and resentment from those who had once held power. But she was determined to make the most of humanity's new position, to use their influence to build a better, more just galaxy for all. The first order of business was to push for greater transparency and accountability within the Council itself. For too long, the organization had operated in the shadows, making decisions that affected billions of lives without any real oversight or public scrutiny. Ambassador Thompson, with the backing of the human government and the support of like-minded Council members, led the charge for reform. She proposed new laws and regulations that would limit the Council's ability to act in secret, that would force them to be more open and accountable to the people they were supposed to serve. It was a long and difficult process, met with fierce resistance from those who had benefited from the old way of doing things. But Ambassador Thompson was relentless, and slowly but surely, the Council began to change. As humanity took its place as a true power in the galaxy, the effects began to ripple outward. Other species, long oppressed or marginalized by the Council's rule, began to look to Earth as an example, as a beacon of hope and possibility. Some sought closer ties with humanity, eager to benefit from their advanced technology and progressive values. Others watched warily from the sidelines, unsure of what the future might hold but knowing that the old order had been irreparably shattered. For the humans themselves, the new equilibrium brought both opportunities and challenges. They had won their place among the stars, had proven themselves capable of standing toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy. But with that power came responsibility, the weight of knowing that their actions and decisions would have consequences far beyond the borders of their own world. As humanity charted its own path through the cosmos, Ambassador Thompson knew that they would have to be careful, that they would have to balance their own interests with those of the greater galactic community. But she also knew that they had something special, something that set them apart from the other species that called the galaxy home. They had a spirit of exploration, of discovery, of pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And so, as humanity took its first steps into a new era of galactic history, Ambassador Thompson knew that they would face the challenges ahead with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. They would forge new alliances, explore new frontiers, and always stand up for what was right and just. They would be a force for good in the galaxy, a shining example of what could be achieved when a species united in common purpose and common cause. The new equilibrium had been established, the balance of power forever altered. And humanity, the once dismissed upstarts from a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy, would be at the forefront of the change. They had proven themselves to be more than just survivors, more than just another species struggling for dominance in an uncaring universe. They were explorers, dreamers, builders of a better tomorrow. And as the galaxy watched and waited, the humans set out to make their mark, to leave a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. For they were the inheritors of the stars, the ones who would shape the future and make it their own. The new equilibrium had dawned, and humanity would be its shining light, its guiding star, its beacon of hope and possibility for all the ages to come.